Welcome back to the Maryland Made podcast. We're excited to kick off episode 1. But before we go any further into sharing more content in regards to what we do and why we do it, we must first start with who we are. So we can't start with anyone else other than our fearless leader, Risa Lovelace.
All right, Marisa Lovelace, currently sitting as the Assistant Athletic Director for Student Athlete Development. I am a native of College Park, Maryland, which is great to be able to work back at my hometown school. A little bit of background on me. I went to Hampton University as an undergrad, was a student athlete for the collegiate bowling team back then. I studied sports management, then moved on to my next steps of going to Old Dominion University to receive my master's in sports administration. I've spent a total of 11 years in higher education and athletics with a stop at George Mason University, the University of Oregon, and now the University of Maryland. I'm going to pass this over to my great colleague, Tim Bryson, for a little bit about him.
Appreciate that, Huncho. So Tim Bryson, I currently serve as the Program Director for Student Athlete Career Development here at the University of Maryland, of course. My story started in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I grew up. I then went to Coastal Carolina University, was a track and field student athlete for 1 year before transferring to the University of South Carolina at Columbia. While at USC, the real USC, I was an athletic training student and got very involved with the athletic department as well as campus recreation, which led me to pursue my master's degree at The Ohio State University. I was at Ohio State for a couple of years before serving as a postgraduate intern in the leadership development unit on their team at the NCAA national office before making my way to College Park, where again, I serve as a program director for student athlete career development for the last 2 years. So with that, I'll pass it over to Megan to share more about herself.
So I am Megan Beresny. I currently serve as the Big Ten Fellow. I grew up in Sparta, New Jersey, a small town in New Jersey. Little fun fact, I didn't play sports until 8th grade. I was really into choir, and I did competitive choirs all across New Jersey up until the 8th grade. Then started playing basketball, ended up, getting the hang of it a little bit. So I went to play basketball at a small Division II school called East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania. There, I worked part-time in the athletic department while I was playing. So by the time that it was my senior year, my last semester, I was able to do an internship at Rutgers University back in New Jersey. So that was awesome, kind of got my foot in the door of really working in athletics. From there, came to Maryland in my role now as a Big Ten Fellow. I've been here for a year and a half, and I am currently getting my master's degree in organizational leadership as well. So before we really jump in, Risa and Tim, let's start with the history of Maryland Made.
Well, the history, I think, starts a little bit before us. In the spring of 2018, Barry and Mary Gossett gave a great gift of $21.25 million to Maryland Athletic Department, really built on helping student athletes define who they will be after sports. And through that process, Tim and I were able to come on board and really start to think about how we wanted student athlete development to look here at the University of Maryland. So I arrived in September of 2018, and Tim joined me in January of 2019. Sometimes I feel like it was a steal to get him because I had only met him once previously, but I loved his energy, and I thought we needed to have him here. Just the way he thinks about career readiness and things of that sort was helpful to have him when we started to build this program. So Tim, jump in at any point to fill in some blanks I may miss. But once we arrived, the goal was to really understand who the Maryland student athlete is. The Maryland student athlete looks a lot different than in the past of my Oregon students or my George Mason students. And so looking at the landscape and thinking about what are their needs and how can we best fulfill those needs.
Man, great story, by the way. I appreciate that shout out. But we got to take a little bit even probably midway back, right? And how we even got the Maryland Made name, right? So even I remember accepting the offer. You would text me leading up to the my start date, January 2nd, 2019. He's like, yo, we need a name. Maggie, she said we need a name. And I'm like, I'm in freaking Florida. Like, I don't know. And I seen other names that popping around the country. And I was like, yo, Maryland Made, Maryland. I like the alliteration, Maryland Made. So I shot it to her. I was like, feel free to shoot it down. She said, I love it. And next thing I know, we're the Maryland Made Student Athlete Development Team. So definitely, it's been a journey. It's been a learning experience for us all. Definitely enjoy the role of the Big Ten Fellow. So Megan, would love to hear more of your thoughts in regards to why you decided to join the Maryland Made team as a Big Ten Fellow on our unit.
Yeah, so as I was starting, like I said, I was at Rutgers, so I was really getting to see what resources were available to larger D1 schools. Coming from a smaller Division II background from myself, it was very interesting to see kind of what was available. I really liked how advanced y'all were before I even got here. Like your programs were really developed, and like even though you had just started not too long before me, it was like already in a great direction. There was buy-in from a lot of the students, and I felt like in your pillars and the values that you explained to me on my first day, like you could see it in all the programming. So I just appreciated that like what you said you were going to do, like you were doing it, and the student athletes and alumni and whoever else is looking at these programs is really seeing it in everything that you did at the time and now that we do all together.
So I'll throw this back to Tim, since you talked about all these things we were doing and that we continue to do, right, on behalf of the students. What is your favorite part about the development that we've had up until this point?
Yeah, so without a shadow of a doubt, and I think it stems from our experiences outside of college sport and really across higher ed and other industries as well. But our ability and our focus to really center the student athlete voice in what we do. So we are proud proponent, big component on not just co-construction, but also co-facilitation and co-leading with the students. And I think that's evident. I know that's evident in the work that we do, not just with SAC, but also with our other community groups, with our program with Leadership Academy, right? We're always trying to bring in student voice. We're always looking at how we can include the campus community, but also the local community as well. So as we think about, whether it's our career readiness programs, our leadership education programs, and our identity development programs, we're trending up, right? We're trending up. We've been a unit that acknowledges where we've been, where student athlete development has been, but also look forward to where we're going. And I think the work that we're doing now is not just setting the trend for others to follow, but also as an example for other units in other areas within student affairs in higher education to model as well. But as we think about the evolution of Maryland Made, I know we started with 6 pillars. I know, Risa, you gave me that sheet my first day. I was like, golly, like it's a lot of words on the sheet. The mission, the vision has been consistent, which again, I think is proof of the pudding in regards to where we started, but also where we're going as well. But we've really integrated our campus community in a way that, again, I think is a model for a lot of other units across the country and all departments to follow. So Risa, just talk to us more about some of the campus partnerships we've been able to establish, but also leverage during our time so far.
Yeah, so it was important for me to make sure that we were integrated in the campus. And part of that is just the background work that I've done in student athlete development. When you're a shop of one, you don't have a choice but to be partners with campus. And so that was the lens that I had always come from, right? At George Mason, I was a shop of one. Being able to move to Oregon, being a shop of 2, we still need a campus. And now here we're a shop of 3. So still not these mega sized student athlete development units, which, plug, I hope that we can get one day, not just here, but across the industry. I just think that we need to have more bodies focused in this area. But I think having entities from campus brought into the work that we're doing, but also us being brought into work that they're doing, helps us not reinvent the wheel, right? There's so many good programs on campus, whether it be the Career Center, which I know, Tim, you have a plug in that space. I sit as the LGBTQ resource liaison for the athletic department and very well connected to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Even having Megan sit on, our care teams, what's it called? Campus committee, right? Being able to talk about sexual assault prevention, domestic violence prevention, those type of things, I think it's really important because these are pieces that the student athletes see, right? They're not just athletes on this campus, they're students. And so making sure that we're getting the resources to them, because again, we can't host every program at 7:00 p.m. and their schedules don't allow for that. So if they need to go to the career fair, you know what I'm saying? They go 12 to 5. That's what you got. Jump into that space.
So I know you mentioned not just the Career Center, right? The International Scholar and Student Services Office, LGBT Equity Center. Again, mega partners, huge partners, and not just leveraging the work that we do, but also supporting the whole student, right? Student athlete, the whole student. But Megan, and we'll get into more of the programming, on future episodes. But as people think about our program and think about programming that student athlete development units are doing across the country, how can alumni, how can students, how can employers, like how can they support us? How can they support them in the work that we're doing and want to do?
I mean, I think that the coolest thing about our programming is we really get the students at like any level that they're at, however ready they are to jump in, dive into our programs. We have students starting different groups. We have students who are just coming for like one-on-one appointments. So I think we're open to really anything, but I know in a lot of the work that we do and what we see from the students is that they want, the alumni involved in our different programs. They want to hear obviously we've all been student athletes ourselves, but to hear it from a Maryland student athlete, a former athlete is a little bit different. They've been in the rooms that they're in, they've been in their shoes. So to be able to see that, I think it's really great to come in. I mean, we see it a lot with the Impact program, a lot of the different opportunities that we have, and not only with alumni, but even the supporters of Maryland athletics. I mean, it's been great to have different people tap in who might be locals in the community and they've been around for a while and can connect to different resources available. I think that that's like something that the students are absolutely loving and growing even more than we could have ever imagined.
So I appreciate this podcast. We're all millennials, and I think it helps to inform the work that we're doing. I know, Megan, you've been in the field a little bit shorter than I've been in the industry. Reese, you've been a little bit longer. So from your perspective, especially over the last 11 years, how can alumni, students, but also employers best support the work that we're doing?
I mean, I think we should all take a turn at this because we're coming from three different seats. But for me, it's really like, again, to Tim's point earlier, like making sure you're following us on social media and seeing what we're doing, because we highlight a lot of our students' success, but also like a lot of the things that our students need to be involved in. And so I want to point out the work with the Pre-Health Terps, which is one of our communities of practice. Like, to me, that's a leading example of how employers and alum can get engaged. We have a student group who is interested in the medical field and all the facets of the medical field. And these students have created their own programming and saying, we want to talk about clinical opportunities. So they're reaching out to employers and alumni to say, how can you come in and educate us on that so that we're prepared for the next step? And so as we start to think about these other pockets and groups that students want to be affiliated with, I think that's a great time for employers who follow us on LinkedIn to jump into the conversation, because I think it's really important that they not only rely on us, like there's a whole community out here in which they can rely on that has more knowledge in some of these fields that we just don't. So Tim, I'll turn it back to you, but I mean, how do you feel like they can support us as well?
I think both. Well, I know both you and Megan hit on the head, right? And y'all know I say this all the time, but community work is community success. And so we're not the experts. There are oftentimes, I'll speak for myself, where students are asking me questions, employers are asking me questions that I definitely don't have the answer to, but I'm like, you know what? I'll be right back. But I think that's important, not just for the work that we do, but also making sure that our employers, our students, our alumni see themselves as partners in our work, right? We are learning partners. We want them to have equal voice, if not equitable voice in the work that we're doing. And sometimes that'll be a little bit more, but it'll never be less than equal. And so as long as we're continuing to identify, recruit, retain the employers, the alums, but also making sure they have a phenomenal, really extraordinary student athlete experience while they're at Maryland, we know they'll get back, not just their time, but potentially even money to this institution, to this department, but also to this program. But as we close out our episode 1, Maggie, what are you looking forward to? What can the people look forward to over the next several episodes of season 1?
So we are coming in super hot with our programming here on this podcast. I'm really excited about our Athlete to Alumni series. It's going to be highlighting some of the key components of basically turning from an athlete to an alumni and what that can look like. Obviously, everyone's on their own path, going a lot of different directions, whether it's to a grad school program or going straight into your career or whatever the case is, but bringing some alumni back, like I was saying earlier, who have been in your shoes and talking about what that transition looked like for them, whether it's social, financial. We're touching on a lot of different topics to try to set our student athletes up for the best, transition outside of sports. So really looking forward to that.
Reese, how about you?
I mean, I'm really just excited about these conversations that we're going to have. I think really starting off with why we chose the 3 pillars that we did. I mean, Tim, you mentioned we started at 6 in 2018, and in 2019 we narrowed it down to 3, and then in 2020 we changed it, right? But again, our vision and our mission has never changed. The pillars have changed because we've continued to listen and collaborate with our students and thinking about what really makes sense for this space. So I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper in each of those three and even to talk about why social justice is important in the space of student athlete development. What about you, Tim?
You already know. So first and foremost, it wouldn't be a Maryland Made podcast if I didn't mention my beard. So we continue to, record these episodes, show the video. I hope people can see the beard coming in over the next several weeks and couple months. But more so, more timely and more relevant to this work. Definitely just seeing how COVID is going to change the work of not just student athlete development, but really student affairs in general. So how do we continue to evolve? How do we continue to refine our practices? And again, acknowledge the past, but also move towards the future in a way that has not been done before, because again, we haven't experienced the global pandemic in our lifetime. But I think it's an opportunity for us to really think about what's important for the students, per their student athlete voice, and how do we come together with learning partners to create that change. And so with that, how to again thank you all for tuning in to episode 1. I'll always be the one, Maggie probably taking next time, to plug our social media. So again, if you aren't following us on Twitter or Instagram, MD Made Terps. If you're on LinkedIn, which most of us should be, all of us should be, Maryland Made Terps. And again, this information will be in the episode description as well. But until then, I'm gonna have Maggie and Risa unmute themselves and do my favorite activity. Is Maryland Made on me? Maryland Made on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Maryland
Maryland Made.